Hi everyone. Ooh, that's really loud. I already got a strong Italian accent you don't really want to have in your ears. I used to even have a slide with me wearing a Mario onesie, but I thought I'd save you from that. So, to start, we're talking about content marketing analytics, quite a hot issue at the moment in the industry. You see, in our industry, I can't think of any other sector where the top professional have repeated the same thing over and over. Content is king, and so on, and so on, and so on. And, well, pretty much everyone listened to them, almost. So much fluff out there. So we're all about to be buried in crap, or at least that's what my friend Doug Kessler said 2 years ago. And now, wow, we are much worse than that. So even look at that, the much content out there, so much fluff, and they carry on building and building and writing more content. 70% of people interviewed in B2B are writing more and more every day or producing a list. Although 46% of them are not only confident about the success of the content marketing, but about success of measuring whether the content marketing works or not. And still, they publish it every single day. So I thought, well, let's have a little chat on how to measure success, or more importantly, failure. So let's start by choosing the right KPIs. Well, you don't need me to tell you what a KPI is, but always remember to start from business objectives. As funny and boring as it may sound, I've seen so many mistakes in that sense. So the processes, we start, let's assume your business objective, effective marketing, then what your goal, your KPI, and then your target, and don't ever forget to segment it. So let's assume I get to the pub, I have 2 pints of beer, you have none. By the end of the day, we both have 1 pint each on average. Well, you're gonna get me drunk if you carry on like that, so don't be lazy and report on aggregate metrics. So look at the target, and bullet graphs work really, really well in that sense. Why? They force you to think about targets beforehand. So you define, I hope you can see, with different colors what good, bad, or extraordinary looks like. So that at the end, when you monitor it on a constant basis, you see, well, how far you are from your target, and you can correct. So is bounce rate a KPI? Bloody hell, no. Is time on site a KPI? Fuck no. Sorry, pardon my French. But, KPIs, they're not even performance indicator. They're actually flags. So they are even misleading. They think in terms of interactive engagement hits. If you don't know what they are, most likely you don't know what bounce rate and time on site is for the leading web analytics tools. So here, there's a quick link on even just a refresh on how they're measured. Trust me, different from how you'd think. So 69% of marketers use page views as a key metric, forgetting about that they have a longer attention span than what we have at the moment. Remember, now we got Ajax, video, hover, scrolling, clicks, tab browsing, so who guarantees you're actually still engaging and reading the content? And so on and so on. Page views are not a good metric in that sense. So start measuring the attention time your content receives. So from the mouse movements, the video plays, looking what they look like, how many other tabs they had open, and so. And Upworthy in that sense was really good and started in the industry last February. They thought, all right, let's move from page views. I don't know who is familiar with Upworthy as a website, but it goes really well. It's really big, and it's getting now increasingly famous and getting profit from brands. So they started moving to attention minutes and calculating exactly like that, having some custom JavaScript built to literally track any interaction and scoring it. And yeah, no surprise, 2 months later, they had a business model that would allow them to tell brands how the content was being read and how it engaged users, rather than saying it gathered you 15,000 page views. And well, if you can't go that route of literally building custom code, which is probably only good for enterprise websites, and so the solutions out there like Chartbeat, Parsley, or you could even start with free plugins like, well, I apologize for Rob Flaherty, I don't really know how you pronounce his surname, but we have it for screen time, active time, scroll depth, so any of the major interaction that you're interested in. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure every one of you is tracking clicks on the website, right? All right, you should anyway. And so just to double check, and I don't know how many of you come from client or agency side, But when I refer to external here, I refer outside your team. So a KPI is something that goes to the board, either your client or whoever is above you. So it's all like about revenues, conversion, money, where the money talks. Performance indicator is something that marketers like us use to understand how well we're performing. So the attention time we're talking about, task completion rate, which with the same principle that I just described in building custom code to track user interactions, you can apply to that. And instead, you keep flags for yourself to understand when there is an issue that needs immediate attention. Marketers or even website managers, when you have them, different persona, different people working on them. And adjusted bounce rate, very different from bounce rate, is something that you may use as a flag. And remember, the goal of our work is understand what the triggers are behind customers' consumption of content so that we can affect them. So we know what the best course of action is and we can repeat it over and over. So how do we get to that? First, we step up our analytics game. So there are 3 distinct phases: a data audit, framework development, and then ongoing reporting and analysis. And we'll focus even on how to make reporting much quicker so that you're actually focusing on analysis. So to start with data audit, we need to know what are the structures in place, so how the client how we're using the data at our disposal so that we know whether there's some gaps, some opportunities in that sense. So we go through 8 steps. The first one is sources attribution. We need to know where our prospects, maybe a B2B term, but would probably work really well in B2C as well, is where do they come from? Do we know, if we don't know what the first originator of traffic is to us, to our website, we don't know whether that channel is effective or not. And if you're using email, if you're familiar with that, this is a hierarchy. Always remember when you tag certain elements to know where your traffic comes from. A must for emails. The way you set it up will allow you to actually look in conjunction at different campaigns and match them one against each other. So sales funnel definition. So we need to know what the thresholds are at any stage so that we know what are the important stages for us beforehand and we work towards getting people at the right place. That is an example that we did a very simple one on Marketo, is don't go too nifty detail in the end, because, I don't know if you're familiar with the 0 moment of truth by Google. Literally, there's always different paths. Try to have main classes on which you work towards and rules that move people towards closer to a sale or whatever conversion is. And don't forget, you may have several sales funnels at the same time for different goals. Even the same person may have a different funnel according to what they're looking for at the moment. Then data integration or warehousing. So in the end, that data warehouse is just a big database that pulls data from lots of different sources. But when you're able to have them all in one place and then extract it, that's when you can answer to powerful questions by looking at your business data, the web analytics data, and anything else that comes from your CRM. And conversion attribution, at least, and that's the very minimum, we should start with an attribution model to determine what channel gets what in terms of credit for a transaction or any other conversions that we may have. Otherwise, if we start attributing into the last touch point that we had, the last interaction they had with us, we're really heavily going to skew towards channel that without their existence, we'll probably still get traffic. And we apply to evaluate content promotion campaigns. So this is just a mock-up of how conversion path length, a small percentage of people will only come to your site and buy straight away. How many times you go and compare, come back and forth? Unless you use an attribution model, you're actually misattributing anything that was from more than one touch point with you. And give you an example, 4 touch points before a sale. By default, most web analytics tools will attribute to the last non-direct click, or some of them to the last touch point with you or last click, some to the first one. You may even choose to attribute the same weight to every single of those touch points. If I started by Googling your name, then got on pay-per-click, then I signed up to your newsletter and then got an email, and then eventually I typed in the brand and took it. But that would be a really bad way to attribute it, because the real story here is that, direct If there wasn't there, we'd have still probably most likely got the conversion because they already knew us. Email here, it was probably one day before the conversion was quite important. Maybe a pay-per-click wasn't as big as SEO because they already knew about us. They found it. Maybe it was a brand term. You apply custom rules to actually decide what your attribution model looks like and take into account not only position in the channel. And this is only the tip of the iceberg anyway, because how many devices we have now, it's quite hard to attribute a person from different devices when they access a website. And that's why now we're progressively moving into something a bit more advanced, like cross-channel attribution, in which we use advanced statistical modeling and techniques to actually find out with probability how likely is this person that we have a device 1, 2, 3, 4, the same on, I don't know, device 5, 6, 7, 8 on the desktop. And they use probabilistic matching. Anytime you interact with a website, with a property, you always leave a track, which one's maybe your credit card, one's maybe your computer configuration, and so on. So the more you have in the system, the more you're able to match one person to the other. And all of that, obviously, there isn't a person going in the back end. It's just automatic. And conversion optimization. So if we know where an opportunity falls out of the funnel that we set up beforehand, we now know we should probably interact and make changes to the copy, to the messaging, to any element of the page. And never forget to test your assumption. That is really good, especially when assumptions come from senior level. A/B testing, or even better, AAB testing. So always have a control version of both your variants. And prospect segmentation. We are not all the same, and even all the same in terms of buying. If I bought a 100 quid thing and someone else bought, let's say, a 120 quid thing, it's not only the price the difference, it's anything else about us, the product what we were looking for, and so if I'm able to segment prospect based on any demographic or behavioral factors, then I can pick them out of the mix and target them appropriately to, let's say, the demographics, their area, their job role, and so and so. Post-purchase funnel. We always think of the sale, and then what happens afterwards, or conversion, whatever that may be. Then most likely these people will go to a different funnel to get them engaged and again and buy. And these are actually the most valuable customers. Well, because the cost per acquisition is really low in the second and third time they buy with us. So as fun as it may look, it's most likely something like that. You get few funnels there and then. That's how a person interacts with you. And reporting. So right level of reporting should enable different stakeholders to have exactly what they need, not the so-called data pukes where they get massive, I don't know how many of you ever got massive spreadsheets, in which in the end, what do? You just, open it and then put it back, or bin it, or anything else. So anything that makes sense to take decisions, so segment that, make sure that everyone gets only what they need. And most likely will be different people at different seniority will also need more insights than others to take the decision that matter to them. And whenever you can, please automate reporting. Usually, and I'll show you towards the end of the presentation how you can automate reports. In general, it takes only 2 to 2.5 times more than producing it scratch, literally without automating it. But in the long term, you can see how that expense in terms of time pays off really well. So now we went through the first phase, and the data order. We now seen every single step. We need to know what we need, what the data are at our disposal. Let's now look at what we do with that. So framework development is literally just how we collect data, and we start, as we said, from the business requirements. We talk to the stakeholders, and we visualize, often in a Google, in a Microsoft Excel file, we just visualize how the end result would look like, and we just work towards it. Now you can spec it out, planning for mid to long term, so something that is a sustainable solution. Don't overcomplicate things, otherwise you may be in 9-12 months' time still working on a solution, and by that time it will be obsolete. And think of constraint, budget, technology, and resources. Sometimes you may be constrained by existing contracts that the company have, and usually these are like 12 months contract. They purchase a license. You have to use it, or at least make the most of it. And most likely, if it is a good platform, you can always find workarounds to make it work together. A really simple one here, just to show you what I mean with integration and frameworks. Here we see web analytics. So HIP analytics is a log analysis platform on top of ClickTail, which I don't know how familiar are you with there, which is a heat map tool, and ClickTry, so you can see where the mouse moves, where they click exactly on spot on, how long they spend. And then you see web analytics integrated with video, getting data from Marketo, which is maybe your CRM, Marketo, Salesforce, and so where you hold any PII, personally identifiable information about your prospects. That again, you may have got from Salesforce because your sales team had organized a meeting, the data went back into Marketo and from Marketo to your system. All integrated within GA and maybe pushed into a dashboard solution like Leftronic, I could have said Geckoboard or anything else. A dashboard solution usually works quite well to visualize how well you're doing at the moment so that anyone can act upon your data. And again, I'll show you what I mean with integration and how you can achieve them. Just give you a spoiler alert, webhooks and API. Here another system, again, we use GTM, Google Tag Manager. I don't know how familiar you are with it. Sort of a middle man in serving web analytics tool, really good for quality control as well and speed of acting. Sending data to Universal Analytics. We query the data from analytics, we push it on Google Sheet, Docs, automated reporting, and get other data from, let's say, other Google Sheets. And then we split it by stakeholder. These are just examples. And you remember I just talked about the ongoing reporting and analysis. This is the most dreaded question. And so what? You send the report and then you get your boss asking you, and now what? What do I do with that? So remember 5 A's, always add analysis and action. Never give them the raw data. You need to give them something that enables them to take a decision. And in-depth analysis should be carried out on a regular basis. Many companies I've seen out there spend quite a lot of time on monthly reporting, have a person there, and that's the point about automating it, then instead goes hand by hand, spend 4 days a month just putting together a report. That is time that could be spent to actually analyze what the data talk about and then act upon it. Share it first with your team and then with the rest of the client, so you work and discuss on what does data mean. And take data out of silos. So, you know, we all work in different functions, job roles, countries, but the outcome is what we care about. So the decision maker who's going to take some action on the data, whether we're doing well, bad, or so, should have something that is integrated, so get data from different sources. So you have a unique identifier that sits within each of your silos, so you can merge the data together. Personalized, only the information they need. Dynamic. So a real dashboard, not a report, something that could show them trailing, I don't know, last 30 days, last week, and so they could even interact with that and make sure that they select whatever time frame they like. And so your key here is try to become best friend with APIs and webhooks. Let's have a look at what APIs are. In a nutshell, APIs are not really the technical way to define it, but it's just a quicker way, to query a system without actually, and push the information into another system without actually a human being accessing that. So you can push information between different systems and things can happen. So I'll give you an example. I just put it there and stuck it into template earlier. The AGA API would allow us, so Google Analytics has a free API, to get all the data we need without having to learn how Google Analytics works and all the nifty details. Let's say I work with editorial quite a lot. Editorial teams don't want to have to spend time in logging in and understanding web analytics tool. You get the data out of the system and you visualize in the way it's needed and the way they can understand it. And your Bible in that sense, I'm always referring to Google Analytics, but in that sense, and only because most people at different levels, at different companies will at least have tried the free version, so you may be more familiar with it. But for other solutions like Adobe Analytics or for Mosaic Catalyst, it is the same rationale, the same thinking behind it. You just change the name and you change the specs, but it's the same frameworks. For GA, you just go and find, and last but not least, to get access to Adobe specs, you got to sweat quite a lot. GA is all out there. You will understand it's a way good training ground. You can use the reference guide to understand how all the setup works, so you query the API yourself. And trust me, it's really easy. I didn't have a computer until I was 17, and I came out, it was really, really easy to understand these things. And the Query Explorer, so before you actually set out and spend quite a lot of money on having dashboard visualization on top of it, you want to make sure you're getting the right dimensions and metrics, right combinations. There's Query Explorer, you click on the link, you try, you play around with it, with your own data, without screwing them, trust me. You can't break it. It just gets the data out, doesn't break it. There's 3 main ways to extract data from your web analytics, because I'm really keen on you guys shouldn't have to learn. I mean, if you're welcome to it, you should understand how tools work, but you shouldn't spend much of your time in having to log in into tools, copy, paste data there, try to use how a system is, when you may even have different analytics tools and you have to learn any single of them. You need to take an action on those data. So you can extract that. There is an add-on, Supermetrics is my favorite. Again, I think it's like $20 a month. Custom functions, if you're a bit familiar with macros in Excel, this is what we're talking about. Or programmatically, you get, when you test it, you reckon it works really well, you get a developer to then build something that not only does the job, but may even look really nice and good, maybe for your internal use, or you could even be a dashboard where you add your own recommendation for clients and charge quite a lot of money for it. And this is just how an add-on looks like. It's basic. It takes 30 seconds to try. You can also use the management API. So again, we're talking about APIs in GA, to import data. So remember we talked about silos. You don't only want your web analytics data in there. You may want to put in anything else about user 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on your website, in terms of, have they spent anything with you beforehand? What content they looked at, what product, or more information about the products they're looking at, something maybe in real time about whether it's in stock or no, and the actual cost or even profit that you make out of it. So you use analytics tool to analyze the profit rather than cost and revenues only. And webhooks, we talked about the other main element when you want to automate or integrate data between silos. So that is what I used before to integrate data between analytics and Marketo. Marketo, again, is a CRM. You have all your data about a sales lead that may even come from Salesforce if you have integrated, and say, I know I phoned up this person, now there's, we arranged for a meeting, now this person is a contract and so, how much they bought, what company they come from. When you integrate data, now you're using your analytics to say, all right, how many sign-ups did I get, let's say, or to downloads to this PDF for which I had their own emails and so. If I integrate data from Marketo, my CRM, now I can also know whether later down the line the sign-up was in noise, did it become a sales qualified lead, did it become an opportunity, or did they actually buy something from me? Was it a contract? And then in the end, you go back and say, all right, what is the campaign that not only give me the highest amount of prospects or the best quality, but is most likely to have the contracts later down the line or sales. And when you send data to GA, you use webhooks to actually send information from one platform to the other, just when something happens, when there is a trigger, like a rule that you may have put in the system. Someone said, yeah, this is a good person, we have a meeting, it's good, sales qualified lead. That information you push it back. And it's as simple as a setup as like that. It's literally a URL that you put in your webhook and say where you send the data. Custom to, obviously, is a setup as per your own analytics account. Like that, and then you get all the information straight into GA. You may say, all right, where's the catch? You say, how do I link analytics users from one side and CRM entries from the other? Remember, when you're sending data to your CRM, Marketo again, so when there is a sign up, someone fills in a form, some hidden fields are sending some data about what they signed up, what they wrote, what name, surname. With a really simple script, few lines of code is even out there. I don't mind if you just tweet me or send me an email, I'll give you the link. I forgot to put it in. Literally, you add this code, you extract a unique identifier from that cookie for that person, which is what analytics is using, send it to your CRM, store it, and that's what is going to be sent back when you have a webhook and send the data back to analytics. Now there's all integrated. You may want to visualize and not only use what analytics chart has, but the embed API, or you build your own visualization on top of that, similar to what Google Spreadsheet has. In a web page, Google Charts, for instance, and they're free. They look like that, and they're absolutely free. Just a little reminder, we have a challenge. So there's about 3 stages in web analytics in terms of, for a project or for a task, for a campaign. You have collection, reporting, and analysis. Collection is key because that's what it lies in sense that, well, if collection is low in terms of, well, you're not tracking what you should have, collection is not retroactive. So if you weren't tracking, you don't have it. So your reporting analysis is going to be as good or as bad as your data collection is. So you weren't tracking, I can't report, I can't analyze, I don't have any good insight. Your client or your boss will always expect you to have reporting analysis the best of state of the art. Problem is, well, and as long as if you haven't actually acted upon data collection, well, you can't. So you either tell them you manage the expectation and tell them, well, I can't really do much in that sense, or step the data collection up, which is what we talked about in the sense of looking all the elements, how data is used in a company. So the circle of life, we have these 3 stages. Usually, used to be that you had data collection, you do as a one-off, you forget about it, it's fully tested, set up, and then you carry on reporting and analysis, and you have actionable advice for people. And then it's like literally a circle improvement every single time. Problem is, it takes so long to even have data collection set up that by that time it will be obsolete. So you always need to make sure that at a certain time frame you're even revisiting what you're tracking, because your website changes, your needs change, your platforms change, so you need to act upon it. So I myself have been guilty sometimes of selling or implementing a framework in which we say this is really the best. This is awesome. But then it takes 6-9 months later. They didn't expect to touch it anymore, and then I'm like, well, now I need something more. And then they're like, well, but you said it was perfect. Nothing is perfect. Maybe perfect at that moment in time, but not 6 months later, maybe. And remember, one thing we always need to do is not only prove what we do, sorry for the cheesy mantra, but also improve. So it's not only about proving what we do, but thinking beforehand, how can we improve on any other marketing campaigns that we've done. Thank you, and sorry again for the Italian accent. Do you have any question, guys? I apologize, I think I started, my goal was to start from something a bit generic and then go into more detail. I apologize if I lost someone along the way. All good? Well, at least you didn't fall asleep, which is always a win. Thank you, guys.